radio 2.
Neggers cigars.
Yeah, just about.
But because they didn't have a lot of money, mob films used a lot of ingenuity, and that you can really see them being ingenious in the movie, and they really have a stellar cast.
It really is a great cast. I mentioned David Jason, of course, and you kind of feel pretty comfortable with him, and he's a fan of your work as well, isn't he?
Yeah, yes. About 10 years ago, we first knew about this, and it's very nice that everything has now come together. Michelle Doherty, who plays Susan, Death's granddaughter, is just
well, she's
superb.
a beautiful young actress. I mean, I've seen her in the show, I've seen clips of it, and she looks incredible, and she also seems to have a real presence as well. So that
she does.
Because that's a very crucial character in this story.
Well, she basically Susan and Death, but since Ian Richardson spends his time in a box, doing the voice, and Marnix, he's doing, it's the whole Darth Vader kit,
Yeah.
One man does the voice, one man does the
So
body.
the big, tall, muscular guy is walking around on the screen, while the tiny, little, let's face it, unattractive fella is in a box providing the character. You said it, Terry. Come on, you just said it.
Ian Richardson has a rugged handsomeness, I would say.
Yeah, he's sort of roughly chiselled. You must be pleased with it, though. I know that it's something which, obviously any author handing over their work to be made on the big screen, there's an element to which you just have to let it go.
Well, actually, they let me hang on for quite a long time. I was sort of free to wander around the set. I mean, they actually discussed things with me, and not just discuss, but listen to what I said, and sometimes action them. And I wasn't trying to drive from the back seat, but they did give me the occasional go with the train set. And there's actually one or two bits in it where I think, yeah, I suggested those. Yeah, look, and it works.
That's exciting.
So now I've got this much of a kind of directorial credit.
Oh, really? So would you like to do that though? Is it something you'd like to do either with your own books or someone else's?
It looks deceptively easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
So I suspect there's a huge yawning chasm that
the editors do all the work anyway. The directors get all the credit. The editors do all the work.
Well, I'm far too honourable to say that.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So no doubt this is, I would have thought, because this isn't the first, by any means, the first book. This is like number 20 or 21 or something.
This is well into the series. I mean, it's probably about halfway through the series.
So why did they go with this one? Why did you let them do this one first?
Because it's got a kind of Christmassy sort of feel, even though it's Hogswatch and it's entirely different.
Yeah.
The iconography of it is all the same.
You've based it on Christmas, but this is the Discworld Christmas.
Well, yes, it's that sort of thing. And it's not too difficult to get a handle on it. Father Christmas is missing, someone else has to step in. Who is the only other person that can go around the world instantly and knows where everyone is? Death. Who is actually not a bad guy.
No, your Death is, I like your Death. Your Death is a nice, friendly, approachable Death.
Well, I mean, he's kind of the perfect civil servant. Death doesn't kill you, life kills you, gravity kills you, bullets kills you, bad medicine kills you. Death just tidies up afterwards, and helps you along to the next place.
Yeah, he's a kind of a friendly figure, really.
Yeah, yes.
Just doing a job that has to be, like a traffic warden, it has to be done. We shouldn't blame the person doing it.
Actually, it's a rather better job than a traffic warden.
All right, let's now, Terry, you're obviously a man who's very, very old indeed. What kind of music do you like listening to, Terry?
I absolutely listen to absolutely everything now that I mastered the iPod. So you drag out all the CDs in the house, absolutely everything you've ever had, even the ones given free with the Daily Mail and stuff like that. And you put them all on, and you. It
is remarkable, and we take it for granted, but you can carry your entire record collection around with you at all times.
Yeah, but it really enlivens things, because all these things that you've never played for ages are there.
Oh, you know what? I don't know what you had planned to play. Let's play the track I brought in earlier. Okay. Let's play that now. This is a track, you just reminded me, this is a track I hadn't heard for donkey's years. Yeah. And someone gave it to me, and I've put it onto my MP3 player, because I hadn't listened to it, and I couldn't work out who it was by, and finally we stumbled on the name last week, but this is a friend of mine called Charlotte gave me this. It's a fantastic song. We won't play the whole thing, it's about 6 minutes long. See if you remember this one for a few years ago, Terry. This is the Ra Band. Oh, she spoke to the interplanetary operator to speak to someone on the way to Mars, and they get cut off by a meteor storm.
But you never hear from him, she just talks her way through.
Yeah, don't worry, well, the money's with the lady.
I'd like to thank you for letting that into my life.
1985, apparently, that was.
That's disco music.
It was sort of disco, but, I mean, you wouldn't dance too fast, would you? I mean,
I wouldn't dance at all.
Do you dance at all, Terry?
No.
Why? You don't dance?
No.
No, you have a little jig quietly when no one's watching?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's dancing.
Yeah, the foot taps.
I do some of my best dancing on my own.
You see, I'm old enough to do, daddy dancing. anything.
Yeah, you're allowed.
Yeah.
Put a bit of skiffle on. Off you go.
It must be really bad for someone like John Travolta. You have a kid, and then after that, it's the daddy dancing. You know?
Yeah, he can't do that anymore. He's a bit too wide as well, I feel, for that now. Terry Pratchett's with us because because he's a charming guest, but also The Hogfather has been adapted into 2 feature-length episodes for Sky One over the Christmas period, and they're really pushing it as a big Christmas event, as indeed they should. It's out tomorrow night. It's on at 8 p.m. on Sky One, and then on Monday, 8 p.m. is part 2. They're also repeating them on Christmas Day at 1, so it's 8 p.m. 1 o'clock on Christmas Day and 1 o'clock on Boxing Day as well, which would be a lovely thing to gather around for. Are you pleased with the finished result? You've seen them both. You actually, are there things you would change if you could, or is it more or less as you'd hoped?
I mean, there isn't a scene where I didn't think, oh God, I wish you'd had more money, because you always feel that. But they did marvellously with what they had. And the last quarter of the whole thing, where it's just Susan and Death mostly on screen the whole time, just smokes. It really does. And I felt kind of wow, and I actually wrote these words.
Well, you feel so excited about seeing the ball to write.
I mean, that's the nice thing about this is that I have been allowed to get involved, and people cared about what I said about it, and it really does follow the book quite closely. By movie standards, it's a kind of photocopy of the book.
Well, was that one of the requirements you had before you let them do it, or were you happy to let them change it if they? Because what's the point? I've always wondered about that. What's the point of letting them adapt the Terry Pratchett book if they're not going to stick to the book?
Well, you always get that.
You have to make changes.
You always get that with movies, and I think the best thing to do is to let the author wield the knife, because I'm not dumb, and there are things that you can see could instantly go without actually affecting the soul of the story.
Yeah.
And once you cut them off, you make the best you can with what you've got.
We mentioned the cast earlier on. We've mentioned a few of them, David Jason, but there's a young fellow in who I saw him. I thought I know him from somewhere. I couldn't quite place him. The guy who plays he's an assassin in the show, who's been commissioned or been hired by the auditors to try and bump off the Father Christmas figure, of course. And his name, it reads as Mr. Tea Time, but that's the incorrect pronunciation, isn't it?
It's Tia Tame.
Of course it is.
But to his annoyance, everyone gets it wrong. And Mark does it absolutely beautifully in this kind of weird, kind of, I don't know, West Coast Johnny Depp weird serial
He's
killer.
very good. The bits I've seen, he's very good in it. And he's gripping, very watchable on screen. You find yourself drawn to him.
Because he's a psychopath. I mean, he will. If you're boring, he'll kill you and move on.
Yeah, and he doesn't feel at all bad about this.
No, not at all.
It's just a little thing he does occasionally when it's like us, brushing off a table, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, what are you going to be doing more with Sky? Are they going to see how well this goes before they ask you, or would you let them do more? Because obviously, I know you were saying you'd like it to have had a slightly larger budget, but they seem to have pulled it off. So.
Yeah. There are talks, as they say, but serious talks, and I like this method of doing things, because when you deal with Hollywood, as I well know, you deal with 90 people who have lots of power to say no, and there's one person somewhere who's got the power to say yes, and everything takes years and years and years. In practical terms, once we'd got a deal, this one took a year.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. That's remarkable.
And so, it was always at the forefront of my mind, and the money, as far as I'm concerned, is tiny, because when you've got about 5 million, how much are you going to give the author?
Yeah, if you're going to spend all that just to get it on screen, and
but on the other hand, you do get, you do get your movie, and you do get it good.
Yeah, and it's not like money's the only issue for you. I shouldn't think you're signing up for the pensioners' heating allowance this year, are you? So it's not like the wolf's not at the door, Terry.
We don't actually, cut matches in half to make them last.
How disciplined are you as a writer? Because obviously there's a fan base who want to see Terry Pratchett's new book, and they're looking forward to it. Have you got to where you can just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write from 9 till 4, or is it more random than that?
I'm disciplined, but the rest of the world isn't. And so they keep ringing me up, and there are things that only I can deal with that my PA can't. And will you come and do this, and will you tour here and there, and some of the stuff you just have to do, and I'm not quite certain why you have to do it. It's like, if you're a rock and roll star, you can spend all the time in the studio that you like, but sooner or later you have to go out on the road. On the road,
yeah. But do writers really have to do it? Because I know we have a friend in common. There's a tremendous writer called Neil Gaiman, who fans of anything in the fantasy genre will be aware of, and comic fans. Lovely guy. He's always on the bloody road touring. I don't know when he gets to write, and you feel like, look, Neil, stay at home and do some work, for goodness sake.
No, I understand why it's not rock and roll until you've taken it on the road.
So you want to be out there meeting people and reading it to them?
Well, it's just part of the whole thing. I think, actually, when both of us sort of grew up in the science fiction fantasy genre, we might be a bit sort of outside it now. And part of that is the fans, the readers are a kind of an important part of the whole thing.
Yeah, there's a different relationship with them to
you start off going
people.
around to lots of bookshops with names like, the Furry Hobbit and things like that. But that's where the initial
Orc's Nest.
There isn't one yet, but there ought to be, and that's where you pick up the first fans.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, and then also this whole paying forward thing. That you give something back even if it's only a signature.
The fans do love to meet the authors, don't they?
Yes.
Do they turn up dressed as Discworld characters ever, Terry?
Fewer than you may imagine.
Yeah, fewer. Actually, it's probably quite a relief, though, isn't it?
And actually, for some of them, that's their normal everyday clothing.
But once it gets on TV and once they start making movies, I think, of course, that gives people a visual template to base their costumes on, and you will see more and more.
They get their costumes together ahead of time. But beyond the core fans, the people that would buy the body splash, the T-shirt, the towel, and everything else, you actually have the huge mass of readers. Yeah. Who you don't get to see so often, and will be, for want of a better word, normal people. I'm not saying that the fans are not. But
not for want of a better word, for use of the correct word.
But the things that people that probably would not even think of themselves as fantasy fans.
Yes.
I know there's I know that there is that there are a number of ladies in a convent. I know that they read my books because they sent a lady out on one of my signing tours, and she said, "Could you sign these books for some ladies that can't really get out to your tour?" And I said, "That's fine. Well, that's for Sister Mary Joseph. That's for Sister Conceição." That was kind of interesting.
That is, isn't it? So they're sitting there, so now when you walk past the convent walls, never mind the fantasies you might be having, what they're actually doing is reading Discworlds.
Well, I wouldn't say it's the same everywhere, but there was a...
Well, they've got another fantasy book they enjoy as well, I believe. It's just not that far removed. Terry, we're going to have to get rid of you now, I'm afraid, because we're almost out of time for the show. We're going to bung a bit of music on. Let me just remind people, The Hogfather, the first live-action Terry Pratchett book, adaptation, is going to be on Sky One, Sunday night at 8 p.m, Monday night at 8 p.m, and then repeated Christmas and Boxing Day. And it's kind of a whole family thing, really, isn't it? It's kids as well as adults.
Kind of a whole Addams Family kind of thing. They called it kind of dark pantomime, but it's probably about as scary as Disney, and Disney is sometimes scary.
Sometimes scary, scary-ish. But if there's a grown-up in the room, the kid should be okay.
If there's a kid in the room, the grown-up should be okay too.
Speaking of which, what do you make of adults who can't engage with fantasy, who don't read it, who feel it's beneath them in some way, that can't actually be bothered with it?
Oh yeah, I see. I don't care.
It's fair enough.
There you go. Okay. I'll leave you two to ignore each other while we all enjoy. Oh, it's a frosty atmosphere in here now. Okay, we'll play this.
Nina Simone,
okay.